It's good. Yep. Okay. We are live, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Latrice Burks-Palmerio. I am an attorney. I am an activist, and I am a liberator of Black women. I'm a toxic job survivor. I am a toxic job liberator. I take that role very seriously. Today, I'm continuing this series I'm doing called Real Talk with Black Girl Magic Lawyer. The last time we had a conversation with Dr. Wells, she's the co-creator of the Black Women Employee Life Cycle. That was a fruitful discussion. We're here today to continue it with our very special guest, Dr. Monica Cox, who will introduce herself at this time.
Yes, hi everyone. So I am so many things, but I used to always say that I was a professor, but like you, I feel that I am kind of a liberator. I'm a disruptor. I'm someone who pushes against the status quo, and that is more important to me than the titles that I have. Although I am a distinguished professor of engineering at my institution, but I'm also a CEO and the owner of Stiminate LLC, which houses my Stop Playing Diversity brand, which is focused on making sure that organizations and spaces are authentic about what they are trying to do when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Personally, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm someone who really thinks that we should be able to integrate our work and our lives. And I'm just about liberation as well and a disruptive model that allows us, particularly as Black women, to be free and authentic in spaces that were not built for us.
I love that. I want to acknowledge my sister Femarissa Price is in the building. She too is a disruptor of spaces. Dr. Kamani, shout out to my community. I want to actually point out, Dr. Cox, that we both have Ohio connections. I'm from
Oh,
Shaker Heights, Ohio, which is a suburb of Cleveland, and I know that
okay.
you're teaching at Ohio State. Is that right?
Yes, and I actually have a cousin who lives in Shaker Heights, so we'll have to talk about that
That's
offline.
awesome. I really
Yeah.
think that that series, Little Fires Everywhere, kind of depicts what it was like growing up in Shaker Heights. That's an authentic story, and
Okay.
is one that means a lot to me. So I saw that you were the first Black woman to gain and earn tenure at Purdue in that unique field of engineering. Now I don't know a lot of Black women who are in those spaces, so that makes you one of those like glass ceiling breakers. So thank you for for breaking that glass so others can go through. What was your
Thank you.
experience like in that space?
Okay, I think I still have a few cuts. So the shards of glass are still there a little bit. You know what? When I first started, I didn't realize that I was going to be the first. I just was moving forward. And all of a sudden, I remember asking one of the assistants, am I the first? Am I the only? Because I didn't see other people. And so it was difficult. And I often tell people about the blueprint. I said,
Hmm.
you're looking for a blueprint when you're one of the first, but you sometimes don't have it and you have to end up being the blueprint, and you can't be afraid to be the blueprint. I just wasn't ready for it. So I did trademark a brand at the time called Prepared to be a Pioneer, because I said, I think that we can share lessons of what it's like to navigate these spaces so that people don't have to go through what we go through. Um, you know what? We're going to have a real conversation, right? Is that what you want?
Oh,
You want
absolutely.
the
Let's go there, sis. Let's go.
because because I'll
I'm
say
ready.
this,
Yeah.
almost like looking back, I think the problem is that there were so few of us and we were taught to represent white supremacy that we ended up not really forming the sisterhood that was needed, even as we were going into these spaces. So, this is
Yep.
somebody talking 20 years down the road where, all I was taught was how to write grants, how to get the position, how to keep the position, how to be promoted. And now I'm thinking, ugh, that just wasn't it. But
Right. It wasn't
we didn't
enough.
have we didn't have people to kind of tell us, oh, make sure that you take space to grieve when your parents pass or when you have a miscarriage. um, give yourself grace when other people lie on you or they do things that somehow harm you.
Yeah.
But I didn't know much about gaslighting at the time, because
Hmm.
I thought this is a place of integrity. Work is a place where we all have these high standards and we have character. And I think one of the biggest things I'll kind of end this part with is just saying, like, as children, we are taught character education. We're taught the golden rule. We're taught all these things about how we treat people, even
Yeah.
biblically, doing to others as you would do unto you. Is that
Uh-huh.
biblical? Excuse me. I'm like, maybe that's
Yeah,
the
it
golden
is.
rule. You know what I mean? But it's all
Yes.
about caring for people. But work is not about caring. Work is about capitalism.
Talk
And
about it. Yep.
who taught us that in school? Nobody said you going to work to be a little mule, a pack mule.
Wow.
And if you're
Wow.
smart, they will work you harder. So I'm just going to start with that.
No, that's so what I'm hearing a lot is like this notion of like, uncompensated labor for Black women.
Mhm.
Like we do all this extra work just to be in these spaces, just to be
Right.
pushed out and like not supported. And it's really sad. And also I'm hearing this like emotional toll that eventually becomes linked with like physical effects too. And it's so sad. Like who goes to work to be sick, you know?
Exactly. And I tell people, you know what? I didn't know I'd have to choose between my life or my livelihood.
Oh,
No one
come on, sis. Tell it.
which one? Which one is
Yeah,
it? And I think that's where I know I grieve work. Even though I'm still
yeah,
working, I grieve work
yeah.
because I was the little gifted girl who was
Hmm.
building the
Hmm.
models, who was going to the engineering camps and doing the computer things. And the thing that just really messed me up was coming into a space and realizing that people did not see me as I saw myself,
Wow.
as I was brought up to be, as I was empowered to be. And when you come into a space where that tension is there, where people say, oh, you're supposed to be in the corner, but I'm like, no, I'm supposed to be in the boardroom, I'm supposed to be leading.
Right.
That's it comes to an issue of power. And that's
Hmm.
when you realize that who controls things in the space is who determines your destiny in that space. And it has the potential to break you and to squash you and your gifts and talents. And I will say, I think that's why so many people, including myself, go into entrepreneurial spaces, because when you're too much, people want to cap you. But our skills and everything that we have, like, it's limitless, it's boundless.
Yep.
We have the tools to transform every aspect of society, but
Yeah.
society does not often want us to do that. And if you don't know who you are mentally, you will put yourself in this box and think that's all you can offer. But I feel like the tension that you're seeing is when Black people realize, well, I'm saying Black people, Black women, I'll say for myself, realize that we're not going to be contained.
Yeah.
It's time.
And I love that. So what I'm hearing is this notion that I learned about in college, right? Double consciousness is what
Yeah.
um W.E.B. Du Bois coined that term, right? And what he meant was there's a disconnect between how Black people see ourselves and how society sees us. And because
Yes.
of this disconnect is this like, tension in the workplace, us being passed over for like promotions, what have you not. It's a whole thing. I want to acknowledge Dr. Kamani's in the house. Hey, Dr. Kamani,
That's my
Marissa
twin sister.
Price.
Hi.
Yes,
And
right.
Marissa, I met her two amazing women. Hello.
Absolutely. We're grateful to have you two here. So I saw this post that you did the other day, right, where you said stop playing diversity. That's a declaration you made to yourself 2 years ago when you were
Yeah.
just done with that like toxic environment. Can you like walk us through like what specifically was going on in your life when you came up with that term? It's awesome.
Yeah. You know what? It's actually older than that. I would say I thought about it, the concept of it, around 2015 when I interviewed in my current organization. And it started when I just pretty much asked the people in charge if they played diversity. Like, that term just came to me. Do y'all play diversity? It's one of my
Wow.
questions.
Uh-huh.
And of course, they looked at me kind of odd, like, I don't, of course we don't, because I guess you can contextually figure out what I'm talking about.
Hmm.
And over time, I realized that diversity wasn't always real, diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I just started calling things out and saying, okay, when you bring me into a space and I'm set up to be sabotaged, then you are playing diversity. When I'm in a position of leadership and you're not allowing me to lead like other people lead, then that's playing diversity. When you don't pay me the same salary as people who do even less work than I do, then that's playing diversity. And so it just became kind of um,
Wow.
this framework for me when I'm thinking about all the ways that environments are inequitable for marginalized people, especially like me as a Black woman. It's
Yeah.
just pretending, putting on, as I call it, the dog and pony show, and doing all
Yes.
the things that connect back to marketing, but not really doing the work.
Absolutely.
That's what playing diversity is. It's the performative stuff, the
Yeah.
checkbox.
Which I think most, so I think given that America, the American workforce operates like a modern day slave plantation, playing diversity is all this country is fine with doing, just to like tap themselves on the shoulder of, oh, I'm doing good. Now I'm voting for Kamala Harris, but I think she, and I know for sure that she'll need Congress on her side for her to really do what she wants to do. So setting up a Black woman to succeed means that you give her the opportunity to learn like institutional knowledge to actually execute it so she can do her job well. It's not just, you know.
Yeah, I think we're about to see what this gauge of playing diversity is in the US. Are we really serious about this, or do we kind of hide and then go into the booths and say one thing and do something else, and then all of a sudden we get these outcomes that are surprisingly very similar to what we've seen in the past? um, yeah, I know this is not us talking about politics per se, but I think it's important to touch on this because there's even a little bit of nervousness, that I have. At
Mhm,
one
mhm.
point, I think we could say that, your yay is your yay and your nay is your nay in this country. But, people know what to say and how to spin things. And it's just a very um, shaky time for
Yeah.
so many people. And it feels unsafe for so many people, even though we do see a woman of color leading a ticket of a major
Yeah.
party.
And I do want to just like acknowledge what, like Stephanie Perry said recently. Like, yes, like we are gonna vote for her, we support her, but just know that like America has more like healing to do for us to see the change that we need to see to like really feel comfortable here. I want to acknowledge Marissa's comment. She said that quote changed my life. So thank you for that. Like that notion of like
Oh,
not playing diversity, like that's it's really powerful. That's really powerful.
thank you.
So I wanted to ask you, so what does a toxic work environment mean to you? I know some of the work you do in like consulting, you work with people to kind of make these like institutional um processes work, like actually work, and you ask like hard questions. But what does it mean to you? And when did you have enough of it that you decided to like do your own thing through entrepreneurship?
Yeah. So I think a toxic work environment comes back to what I said earlier about stop playing diversity. It's a space where you can. It's a place where you can no longer trust the environment and the space to do what it says it will do, or at least
Right.
what it presents itself to be.
Mm-hmm.
it's
Mm-hmm.
that it's that dissonance. And I think Dr. Joyce McGrew, who talks about post-traumatic slave syndrome,
I love
mentioned
her.
that a lot. Like there's this dissonance of how, for example, in the US, and this comes back to workplaces, we present ourselves as the land of the free, the home of the brave, a place where there's justice for all. Yet when you look, we don't have justice for everyone.
I
um,
love
it's not a place where people are free, where they are liberated. And if that Constitution belongs to me, then why am I not seeing the benefits of that Constitution? Translate that into the workplace. If we have certain rights and we have certain policies that are supposed to protect us from harassment, well, there's not a real law. That's another issue. But, protect us from the basic harm that's supposed to happen
right,
at work. If we're supposed to
right.
be able to have fair assessments of our work and be able to have um, and to be healthy, mentally healthy, and to not be like stressed by work. That's what um, I think a toxic place is when you don't want to go to work, not because you
Yes.
can't do the job, but you're afraid of what's going to
Hmm.
happen when you do your job or if you do your job
Hmm.
well. A toxic place is one where people are not believed.
Yeah.
If you say that someone has done something or there's a violation of policy, people either won't listen to you. For example, HR people may not listen to you. They may not respond to you in a timely manner, or they may actually make you the scapegoat because they want you to leave the organization because they don't want to do anything to correct their own issues. Um, it's dysfunctional. It's perverse. It is wicked. It is twisted. That's what a toxic work environment is. So I think you asked me also like what kind of motivated me. Is that right? To come
Yeah.
into this space. This is deep. This one is deep because as a person of faith,
Hmm.
at one point I was like, am I about to be a pulpit minister? Like, I don't know. I'm really into words and listening and almost having like prophetic insights about situations. And I've noticed that my heart always went toward the people who could not speak up, whether it was because they were in a position where they would be penalized if they spoke up or if they
Hmm.
just weren't brave enough to do it. That has always been my heart. From the time I was 3, 4, 5, 6, I've done this.
Yeah.
It's me.
Yeah.
And I never thought I would have to do that at work, but I became an administrator. And when I was around that table, I felt as if I was on the wrong side.
Wow. 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 I just got the chills. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
That's
yeah. I
phenomenal.
saw the battles. I'm sorry. Say what you were saying again. I'm sorry.
No, please, no. I'm a preacher's kid, so I grew up in the church, and like I know
Mhm.
about like spiritual warfare. You're saying by being in a toxic
Absolutely.
environment, you felt the weight of being on the wrong side of that spiritual warfare. Wow.
I did. I did. And you got me thinking a lot. It's just, I knew that my values would outweigh any of the hierarchy of an organization. And that was just a little bit, it was hard. And remember, I told you about like my life versus my livelihood. And it's this thing of like whenever you're in an administrative position, you get like your administrative supplement, you get like more pay, you get more access to things. And I just said, I'm going to start a business because people are telling me all their business, all their stories. They're sharing things with me. And that's my calling. That is the thing that I have to do. And, people kept, like one person, this was the turning point for me. A young woman was a grad student and she direct messaged me on Twitter and she
Hmm.
said that she was thinking of ending her life, but my words kept her going.
Wow.
And it just felt like that meant more to me than the titles and the accolades of my academic job. And I started coaching and consulting because people reached out to me for that.
Yeah. Wow.
And and even today, I will say my clientele has gotten more specialized, and they are people who are very prominent in
Hmm.
the eyes of work and the world, but doing the things of work, being productive, did not prevent them from being harmed.
Wow.
And when they saw me, presidential awardee, all these things. And when I say presidential awardee, I have like over here the award signed by President Barack Obama saying I'm one of the outstanding researchers in the country. That
Awesome.
didn't prevent me from getting hurt. Like, I did everything right.
Yeah.
Code
Hmm.
switch. I assimilated. I wore the mask. I spoke eloquently and in a soft tone to make myself not intimidating. I straightened my hair. I tried to make myself
Yeah.
small, my
Yeah.
presence small, but it was not enough. And
Okay.
that's where this brand was born too. It's your silence will not save you,
Yeah.
not prevent a target from being on your back when someone wants to target you. And I
Oh,
think
it's
it's the
so.
systemic thing. Yes, go ahead.
I know I'm just waving my eyes, like I'm getting emotional because it's so true. And I think like Marissa and I talked about this a few days ago. Like we have done everything right. Like you
Yeah,
literally broke glass. You like shattered a glass ceiling, and still it's not
absolutely.
enough in white supremacy's capitalism. Whenever
Mm,
she's done with us, she pushes us out. Doesn't matter.
you
We could cure cancer.
know, you're right. And you know what? And I think people need to understand this part too. And you start getting a little bit more aggressive with your words and how you move when you realize it's just not there to push you out, it's there to break you. If you look at the history of this country, and if you really do study the role of Black women in this country, and I think how those thoughts have been passed down, and people, think, oh, it's consciously or, you know, unconsciously, it's to break
Yeah.
us, to make us property, to make us not think independently, so that we want to escape the um, the bonds, the things that bind us.
Yeah.
It's to not create our own systems. It's to not challenge the current system. That is how we were supposed to be. And so much of that is still present. And this is a mindset. Like, I don't know if we're going to talk about this. And Dr. Kamani and I talk about this all the time about how I still work in this place. That's a whole conversation about me working here.
Hmm.
Um, but I also realize that justice is needed in this place as
Yes.
well. And there are
Hmm.
still people who are caught. There are still people who are trapped, and they will possibly die if someone does not say, hold on another day. I'm in the room with the policy, and I'm going to speak up on your behalf so that you don't fall over right here. And
Wow.
that's kind of where I have come, as a professor, as someone who's been here for 20 years. I often tell people, I don't want what this organization, no, I don't want what this system has. I get a lot of invitations to apply for like dean's positions, for provost positions to ascend, but
Hmm.
I did one today. I politely declined because one, I do not want to uphold the system in a position of leadership where I will be forced to slaughter other people to retain that position.
Talk about
A woman,
it.
because that is exactly it. If you look at anyone who is a leader in a higher education institution, they have had to compromise and they have had to slaughter someone to retain that position. Be very cautious about people who are favored at the top of the institution, who are the poster children, because they are doing something to retain that position. But there are people who are supposed to be in the system who can call out the system without fear of losing their paycheck, without
Mm.
fear of losing that title. And that is the tenure part.
Yes.
That is the thing that's a little bit tricky. And I feel like people didn't factor in the fact that you would have mouthy Black women who come into institutions where they tell you that you have a permanent job if you get tenure and can show you that you're credible. They didn't expect us to have the same rights and privileges of the people who get to stay in here until they're 65 years old, because guess what? I earned this.
There we go.
So that's the thing too. So I'm bringing it back to what we said at the beginning. I'm one of the few people, but I knew that there were times that I was like, you know what? I'm going to ascend. I'm going to go to the next level. That puts me in a different room. I'm going to the next level. This puts me in a different room. I'm going to another level. That's putting me in a different room as well. Now, it's not the one who's over the budget. It's not the one who's supervising people. But can I also tell you a secret about that? Child, you got me getting comfortable in my chair.
Oh,
I'll say
please
this
get
real
going.
quick. Many of those leadership positions are also distractions. They will put you with so many things that have you running around in circles that you can't even think straight. So you just have to know sometimes you don't want to be in those positions because it's just there to keep you busy and to keep you
Hmm.
from doing real work. Although I'm
Wow.
not in a formal position in my institution, I have the space to do the real work. I have the space to be on this YouTube with you.
Yeah.
I have the space to write some things that are a little bit that are pushing the status
Mhm.
quo, that are saying from the inside, this is what I see, and I'm the reporter who's telling y'all this is what's up. Similar to, how people talked about Vietnam, how they talked about, what was happening back in the day. It's like this is the truth of what's
Right.
going on in the civil rights movement. This is the truth of what it looks like from inside the jail, from inside the whatever, because the world needs to see this is
Yes.
happening. And I'm credible. And believe me when I tell you this is what's up. So that's a lot.
No, but it's wonderful, and it goes back to what I saw this video that you posted on like Instagram, and you were talking about being one of those like good troublemakers, and that sometimes we get labeled that from our own sisters or brothers who call us that, who kind of drink the Kool-Aid, and then
Yeah.
they want to stay put, but they call us the ones that are like causing trouble. But do you have
Yeah.
any advice for women like me, like Marissa, who are in this like new stage of like this like new generation of troublemakers? How do we
Yeah.
deal with the backlash from our community?
It's so funny that you say this because I have a research group that I'm working with now, and I have four Black women who are working with me um, on this research that I'm doing in the next phase of my career. And we
Mhm.
often talk about this, like the authenticity. How do you retain this? How do you disrupt? How do you stay safe? How do you uplift each other? And one thing that I'm really finding out, and it's so funny because I wrote some things, almost like guiding norms and principles of how I want our team to work. And I think what you have to do is really shift the system. It's almost like deprogramming yourself because
Sure.
everything that we have learned from the time that we came out of the womb comes back to like the patriarchy, capitalism, white supremacy, as bell hooks would say.
Yep.
And so it's constant work. Just like you're working out and you're trying to train for something, this work is a daily exercise
Hmm.
in believing that you are enough, first of all, because you're going to have messages all day that tell you that you're not. You're going to have to form community, and I think you all are doing that. But it's a community of people who celebrate your disruption, celebrate your liberation, celebrate your voice, instead of the people who are so afraid and haven't gotten free um, of their own chains
Yeah.
of white supremacy. I mean, so that's hard. Like I could break that down too. But you know what I mean? It's the vetting. It's the whole all skin folk aren't kin folk, as Zora Neale Hurston would say. But how do we vet that? And I think we also have the stigma of like, oh, we're all supposed to get along. We're all supposed to like lift each other up. Some people ain't safe, honey.
And they're
So I
not
think
interested
go ahead.
in that community.
Exactly. And they will push you down to keep you silent because they're afraid that your voice is going to take something away from them and they will not get favor. I have seen that part too, where people will distance themselves from you. They will try to discredit you and they will do what they can to keep you silent so that they can ascend and they can get favor.
Yeah.
So be prepared for that. It's so weird because I feel like I'm also coming from a deficit perspective, and that I'm just like, man, look out for all the traps. But I do use the Harriet Tubman metaphor, the Underground Railroad metaphor in a way, where it's like you're trying to get to your free place, to your liberation, and the path to liberation means that you can't trust everyone and
Yeah.
that some people who you didn't think were going to be there for you are going to be there, and some people who you expected to be there will be the ones telling on you and getting you harmed.
Well,
So this journey is one of discernment,
yeah.
wisdom, um, trusting what you see, and I also would say recovering quickly. I didn't say
Mm.
be strong all the time, but you
Right.
grieve the loss. You grieve the loss of the people who you weren't meant to connect with. You
Mm.
move on, still feel the sadness at times, but keep moving
Right.
toward what you need because that is the business part of it too. where we are really resilient, but we can't wallow in the sadness. And we have to, in a way, push against that, the way that we want to nurture everybody. You know what I mean? Like we want everybody to come with us. We want to like be so motherly by nature.
Right.
But in this work, sometimes that does not work. So it's
Yeah.
weird. It's like it feels like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth in terms of like the capitalism and then saying like be hard, but to survive
Yeah.
and to thrive the way we need to, you do have to have that sharpness and that focus on the goal.
It's very true. I see Dr. Kamani wrote in the comment preach, and Marissa wrote chill. So this is like a fruitful, honest conversation about something that we see every day. So I
Mm,
posted on LinkedIn, and you and I are connected on that.
yeah.
I said that America has this like large scale civil rights violation because Black women inherently fall in at least two federally protected classes, and
Yeah.
we're talking about Black women across all industry sectors. I'm a lawyer. You were in like educate. You are in like education. Excuse me.
Hmm.
And we see the same things. So that
Yes.
that's like a large scale civil rights violation. What do you think besides like major class action could we
Hmm.
do to kind of like handle this issue that we see every day?
Yeah. Um, Gosh, you know what? One of my favorite quotes comes from Audre Lorde, and it's just something that just stays in my spirit about, um, just realizing that you will never dismantle the master's house with the master's tools.
Whoa.
And we need to be innovative and come together across industries to create our own systems with our own tools. And, as someone who also has a background in policy, I can hear like multiple arguments to what I say. Some people will say, like, oh my gosh, that sounds like segregation again. That sounds like we're going backwards when we're just like, let's separate what we're doing. But
Right.
I feel I'm saying we need to understand that we have tools that will provide us with access to success. And so instead of always leading from the fact that, oh, this is the way it has to be done, now let me
Mm,
conform. No, this is like we know what we need to do for our wellness. We know what we need to do for liberation. So
yeah.
start with the liberation tools, and then find the elements of the other system that works. Because I always tell people, I'm not saying dismantle and destroy everything. Like I think there are some really solid principles about logistics, some
Yeah.
elements in our country that are really great. I'm not trying to reinvent the airline industry or tear down things. I think what I'm talking about is making sure that the accessibility and the way that we move in systems will be different. There are some things we need to create that are new, but a lot of it is just revising certain spaces and speaking up to say, this is how I'm going to creatively change it so that I don't feel that I have to choose between my family and my job or my life and my livelihood.
Yeah.
That's very basic. Take that
Yeah.
model, take that saying, and apply it to every system, and you have somehow dismantled, you have somehow disrupted life versus livelihood. Okay, this is what it looks like now, where I get to go home at 5 o'clock, where you don't question me 50 times because I have to take care of my health or my sick mom. We're
Right.
not doing that. We're not badgering people. We're just going to assume good intent, and that if they are not here, they're taking care of some business and they're going to
Yeah.
make up for it because they understand how to be a good team player. So it's little shifts that
Yeah.
are actually big, and that's what we need to do. That's how we need to move. And one thing that's coming to me right now is that many people will say you have to be in positions of power, you have to be in the C
Mm,
suite to do that. But I think there's also an individual piece too, where you have to make up your mind that that's how you're going to move. So my form of liberation comes from the fact that I know where my boundaries are. I know what
mm,
my non-negotiables are. I know that my child will not see me broken in a system. I know that I'm going to take care of my family and he's going to say he knew his mother. Those are things that are just non-negotiable. I don't have to explain it to anyone. I don't have to justify it, but I show up that way. When you see me on social media and how I move, the voice, that voice is the same. If you know me, if you don't know me, it's public. I don't put my stuff on private. That is Dr.
Yeah.
Monica Cox every day, all day. That's it. I lead from that because that is my disruption. And people are shocked. Like, you work here, you this, aren't you afraid? No, I'm not. Why are you not afraid? Because my values, and you know what? This comes back to my ancestors. I put this on LinkedIn today. And so this is a very spiritual thing that I say also, where during this time that I was an administrator, I lost both my parents, and I am an only child. And
I'm
so,
sorry.
thank you, thank you. So early in life, I mean, I think still relatively early because I'm not yet 50 years old and I don't have my parents with me anymore. Um, I took on that mantle of my ancestors. I took on the mantle of what they would want me to be, how they would want me to speak. I
Hmm.
carry that very seriously with me wherever I am. And I think because of that heaviness and lightness at the same time, I just move differently because I see them, I feel them.
Hmm.
And I said, I know they wouldn't want me to cower. I know they didn't raise me to be this person for me to bow down and to be treated like trash. That is not what they invested their time in. That is not um, I don't, it's deep, and I think if we truly understood the sacrifices of our ancestors and
Yeah.
how they wanted, girl, you got me going, you got me going. But I will say this:
It's
I just feel
beautiful.
like many of them, girl, I feel teary about this, but I feel
Yeah.
like I believe the Creator probably showed them us. At some point, they got a vision to be like, you may not see this, but one day, the people who come after you are going to represent you in every way, your voice, the actions, the dream that you never got to see. You planted the seeds for them to have the fruit. And so when I tell you how serious how I move is, it's because I understand the roots that are deep,
Yeah.
the branches of the trees, and
Yes.
the manifestation of the fruit
Yeah.
that is there, and how I am meant to water and nurture in my lifetime so that that fruit continues. And I often tell people, you have to, this is where meditation comes in.
Um,
However people see the vision for the future, we are just here for a moment. Everyone in life is here for a moment, and we will not see the full manifestation of everything that we have done. We will not experience the true liberation in our lifetime, but that doesn't mean you stop. You do as much as you can, because when you take your last breath, the people after you pick up that mantle.
yeah.
And you hope that you took it far enough so that they don't have to go through the things that we went through. And that is the generation. That is what it
Yeah.
means to be a
Yes.
steward in this life.
Hmm.
And I don't know, that was a lot. I went on for a while. That
No,
is,
I got teary eyed too. I'm still
you
teary
know,
eyed too because, and I did a live with Marissa Price, and we talked about spiritual birthright. And one of the things that
mm,
I do as I pray to my ancestors. One of the things that
mm,
I ask them for is give me your unused potential. I know you were
mm,
smarter than me. I know
wow.
you survived. You had all of these skills that you didn't
Yeah.
get an opportunity to
Come on.
exercise. Give me that untapped potential in
Mm,
this exercise. I go there.
I
So
love
yeah.
that. I feel it. It's powerful.
And it's similar to
Powerful.
what you're saying about the roots of the tree. The reason why I get to stand sturdy is because my roots are strong.
Come on
Similar
now.
to
Mm,
yeah.
yes. Yes. And
I
that's
just
how we're
believe
going to
that.
make it. You know what? If we truly understood that we were connected, if we understood how deep our roots were, we wouldn't be tossed around so quickly. But so many of
Yeah.
us don't understand that our roots have been planted before
Wow.
us, and all we have to do is bear fruit.
Yeah.
So, girl,
So Dr. Kamani says, spoken like a brilliant Spelman woman. All right now.
thank
I
you.
love
Thank
that.
you. I
So I
love
want
her.
to yeah, no, me too. I saw a Dr. Kamani video she did about pet to threat, and then ever since then I've been I've been hooked. She really has like liberated me so I can liberate others. So that's how I feel about it. She's wonderful.
Yes.
Um, I wanted to talk to you about your career as an author. You published at least three books now, and I want to read a quote from one of your books called "Never Defeated," and you posted
Okay.
this on Instagram. You said, "I
Okay.
am not an angry black woman. I am a black
Hmm.
woman whose questions make people angry. There is a
Yeah.
difference." Can you tell
Yeah.
me a little bit about that quote? And it's so powerful. When I read it, I got the chills, and it's like, whoa, like so I would love to know what that means to you.
Yeah, you know what? And it's so funny. I can't tell you the exact day that I wrote it, but it's one of those things like whenever you're in your quiet time and you just
Yes.
looking at something and you just something just comes to you and it's like, you know what? Everybody wants to call me angry, but I don't even think that's it. And you breaking down the essentials and it's like it's because I keep asking questions. That's what it is. Y'all don't want me to ask the questions. You don't want me to be a free thinker. You don't want me to say you did it this way, Bob, but I think that it needs to be done this way, and this is what I demand. So it's that other part too. Not only is it the questions, but it's the comments to say, I'm going to ask you a question and I know the answer to the question. And because I know the answer to the question, I'm going to demand the rights that are due me. So, it's a whole thing, right? That's just pushing against the norms. But I think it just represents the grace and the space that we as Black women are not given, but must take.
Hmm.
Um, and when you it's just that whole thing like everybody talks about imposter syndrome. It's not imposter syndrome, it's the fact that society tells you that you need to just shut up and not ask questions. It's That's what it is, because you know what, everybody has a right to question. Everybody, look at the opinions. Everybody has opinions about everything in life.
Yep.
Everything on every social media platform you could talk about um anything, and it's like this is an opinion. But you know, when we get into spaces
Yes.
that have historically excluded us and we start having opinions, that's when people want to go into our tone. They want to get into us not being good fits, for us not being professional.
Yeah.
Um, all these things. It comes back on us and
Yep.
on our um, deficits, deficiencies, whatever you want to call them, all these things that just something's wrong with us. But that quote is removing all that stuff, all that noise, as I call it, all the distractions,
Uh huh.
and it's saying, you know what? I'm just asking a question. I just want an answer to a question. And my
Wow.
husband and I talk about this all the time. Whenever I was a department chair, an administrator, he said, state the facts and remain professional. And by professional, I just talked about what the construct is, but professional is like, I'm just asking you a question. I'm not attacking you.
Yeah.
I'm not I'm not saying anything that's out of the norm. I'm not threatening you. I'm just stating facts. The numbers say this. The history says this. Your email says this.
Yeah.
And when you just kind of sit in the cut and it's like, and I'm waiting for answers,
Hmm.
people get angry. They're the ones that get angry. I didn't come at you angry. You angry at me.
Right.
And so I think that's part of the dismantling as well. When we flip the script, we don't get upset when people are like angry black woman. No, no, no. Let's break this down again.
Yeah.
Where's the source of the angst? Okay, it happened when I asked the question about the pay. So let's stay there. I'm gonna stay there and I'm gonna have all my data to say this is when it turns sour. This is
Hmm.
when we gotta this is what's happened. And I'm just gonna sit there and I'm gonna be silent if I need to hear your response. And you wanna get huffy, I'm not gonna raise my voice. I'm just gonna keep pushing that data at you and say this is what happened historically. And I think that's where the beauty of the law comes in. I'm not
Yes.
an attorney, but baby, guess what? I got the documentation,
Uh
I have
huh.
the history, I have the interviews from the people who experienced it, I have the
Hmm.
emails, all the stuff that
Yep.
helps me to put the case of where the problem is. And guess what? It's not me. You're the
Absolutely.
problem. You're the one who didn't respond. You're the one who was silent. You're the ones who didn't treat me equitably. You're the one. who didn't follow through. It wasn't me, it was you. And we have to be bold enough to move forward with that.
Yeah.
And it comes at a risk, but that's the next level of liberation.
Yeah. I
It's
love that.
to be here. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Is so when there was a recent black woman who was murdered by a police officer for saying,
Mm,
you know, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus.
yes, I
Sometimes
remember
by
that.
asking questions and by making certain like declarations, it like goes back
Mm,
to this notion of like spiritual warfare. It's like, why
yeah,
is my question asking making you uncomfortable? Like, and I also hear clients tell me that when they ask about like development, oh hey, you know, I noticed that so and so is going on this field, this, you know, like field visit, and I haven't been invited. And then with that, people start crying, they like gaslight you, like instead of talking about the actual facts that are being raised and the issues being raised, they just talk about
yes,
something else, which is gaslighting. So
it is.
black women are gaslit so much that we are just like combustible at this point. So I
Yeah,
want to acknowledge Anna. Angela Warren said that she appreciates the like authenticity of our voices. So I wanted to
oh,
acknowledge that.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Angela. Go ahead, Dr. Cox. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I mean, I do think that we have to continue to encourage each other to think like this as well. Like
Yeah,
you were talking about this, these are very lonely perspectives. I think about that all the time. It is not that I have like a ton of people in academia who are like, oh, girl, let's just like go and, raise hell, so to speak.
yeah,
It's like, shh, shh, be quiet. Don't say that. Like, and I do find that the younger generation is more likely to speak up because the people of my generation, like we were kind of taught, hold your head down, get your job, do what you need to do. And I mean, I think there's just such beauty and promise in that, and we just have to encourage that those upcoming generations to not be afraid to speak up because we don't want them to be broken.
and the cycle needs to stop, and it happens when we all join hands, because we are dealing with like common experiences. And
Hmm.
I'm proud of people like you and like Dr. Kamani who have gone against the like generational norm for you, and you have spoken up, you know. Dr.
Yeah,
Kamani talks about how like God spoke to her before she was due to go back on leave from a toxic job, and she said no, like if you go back, you will die, you know. And like by choosing life, you know,
yeah,
and like listening to those messages. I wanted to ask you, how did you get involved in writing? Because I love the book, and like
yeah.
tell me about Never Defeated. What's it about? And you know, I'll ask later about how you got involved in writing.
Yeah. So, ironically, I've written I've written 6 books in a year,
Wow.
as of Monday. So 4 novels and 2 nonfiction. So Never Defeated is my nonfiction book, and I always knew that I had a voice. That is my thing. Since I was young, my mom used to always say, I made everything a microphone. Part of my calling, words, they're words.
Yeah.
And I realize it's speaking
Hmm.
what is in me, what is given to me, but writing what is given to me. And when I was no longer in a formal, like, big leadership position, I started writing. I've always been a journaler. And
Yeah.
I said, I want to write books. So for Stop Playing Diversity, I had to write a series of print books. And so, okay, let me get these books out. And the words came. So that's where
Mm-hmm.
that came. And my nonfiction is romance, but it's about Black women who are very independent and they've gone through workplace harm in some way, or they're trying to heal people through workplace situations. And I just realized that I was able to tell my voice in a very authentic way in fiction without it being my story.
I
And
see.
I'll just say this really quickly. I was doing some research to be like, how can I make this scholarly? Because, I'm still a professor, and it's so easy to be like, all she's doing is just, writing all this mess. But if you think about Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler, if you think about Beloved by Toni Morrison, that's an example of critical race methodologies. They are it's a methodology that's more of a counter story, and a counter story is a story that centers the minority voice or the marginalized voice. And so a lot of my stories show what it's like to be behind the scenes. The things that I'm telling you as a first and only, I'm putting it in a book, and it's now centering that voice. It's now saying that this is a norm, this is acceptable, this is real. And I'm gonna say one other thing about that, because I don't know, I just feel nerdy today. I
No, I
was
love
looking
it.
to see what was the origin of even fictional counter stories. And similar to Kimberly Crenshaw, where we're talking about intersectionality in the law, you'll appreciate this in that I think the fictional counter stories began in the legal profession because people needed examples of real cases
Yep.
of Black, brown, marginalized people outside of the textbooks and the cases that were presented to talk about the law. The
Mhm.
black people are not criminals all the time.
Yep.
There were other
Wow.
reasons that people engaged in legal situations, and they needed stories that would represent that to teach, educate, etc. So that was a lot. I don't know if I answered your question, but it made me feel good to say
Yeah.
I wanted stories to come out to show what people often don't hear. And in my research with the presidential award that I told you about,
Hmm.
um, I had a framework that talked about what it means to be a scholar. And it said, whenever you are a steward of your discipline, there's generation, conservation, and transformation. Generation, and these are by some authors, Goldie and Dorr. Um, Chris Goldie came from Stanford, and generation is creating new knowledge. Conservation is retaining that knowledge. And transformation is teaching in the broadest sense of the word. So I kind of got a revelation years ago that there are people who had never come to my classroom, but I wanted them to engage with me. I wanted to translate all the stuff that I have. So when I'm writing novels, when I'm writing books, when I'm really breaking stuff down, not using critical race methodologies, when I'm not just quoting bell hooks or Audre Lorde or Chris, or all these things, how do I make this um, every day so that you understand how I'm taking this and letting you see this is your liberation too. So that's part of
Wow.
me being a professor as well, where I'm
Yeah.
breaking it down and putting a handsome man up in the book,
Yeah. I
and
saw
I
it
tell
on the
people
cover now.
they be humping and bumping a little bit, but guess what? They gonna get healed. And I actually put pet to threat. This is what you're gonna appreciate too. Do you know? I talked to Keisha Thomas, who co-authored that the phenomenon, the pet to threat,
Uh-huh.
and I asked her if I could use pet to threat in that novel. And the main female character is a grief counselor who works with women of color, and she
Hmm.
told them about racial battle fatigue and about pet to threat. And so I have the reference at the back of the book so that people will know that this is something that exists. And as they're reading about all this, they're also
Yeah.
seeing that if this is happening to you, this is the
Yeah.
reference, this is what it looks like. So that was a little
Wow.
story that I might extract for my own story later on because I liked how I explained this today.
No, you should. No, please. And I'm so, so, so very inspired by you. I have some books ideas that I wanted to go with. I wrote a script with a good friend. I'm actually at their house now. But just like
Okay.
things like that, like I'm like, and I've been wanting to know like what would be that like pushing event for me to like move forward, and to just having it as an idea in the back of my mind versus bringing it forward. So thank you. Do
Yeah.
you have any tips for me and other women who want to go?
Let me tell you something. Remember, I told you, how are we going to get liberated? How are we moving forward?
Yeah.
Um, I sat on my book, my first book, for 3 years,
Really?
just writing it, just writing it. I did not have the infrastructure. Remember, I told you about systems. There are
Mm-hmm.
people, and you have to understand the infrastructure. So, I talked to one woman who was an amazing publisher. She helped me to kind of understand the direction I need to go to write the book. But there is a publishing company called Beloved Publications that is made up of about 30 independent Black authors. And the woman
Wow.
who's over this Beloved is like this prodigy. I think she's like a little genius, and that she's about 33 years old. She really helps these authors to get into the system and to get their independently published books out. So I
Wow.
submitted my completed novel to her, got into the system for a 1 book contract, but the cover design that you saw, I do not do that. They have in house editing, they have a schedule. All I do is write my book. So, how do I write 4 books in a year? I am in a system where Black women are the graphic designers, the editors, the ones who are getting stuff out, and they help me to create this. And of course, I give a portion of the royalties, but come on, dreams are coming through.
Yeah.
One month we had like 14 to 15 million pages read within all of our books. And so you
Mm-hmm.
think about that. We have themes, we have anthologies, we do group projects, we do independent projects, they have book events. We and I'm gonna tell you another thing that I think is amazing. As part of our contract, on release day, you have 30 women who make sure that on their independent sites they are supporting the person who is being released that day, whose book is being released. And so that's helping with the ratings, that's helping with the reputation of the company, that is helping with just the success of the author. It's a fine-tuned machine. That's an example of another system that is
Right.
now helping. I could not have done this without coming into a new system, a well
Right.
developed system, a safe system that is
Yes.
now doing the things that I don't have the credentials to do, but I have
Yeah.
the skills to produce. That is one of the most beautiful examples of how we need to move in this system as Black women. You, as an
Yep.
attorney, I don't need to be an attorney. You don't need to be a professor. But if we
Right.
figure out how to
Yep.
leverage what you have and what I have,
Yep.
come on, what are we going to start doing? And we don't do that enough. We don't connect enough.
Yeah. Yeah. Collaborations are the pillars of liberation.
Come
I should put
on.
that on a t-shirt somewhere. Like
I'll say it
that's
again.
really
Say it again. You said collaborations are.
collaborations are the pillars of liberation.
Come. You need to quote the essence. You can put it on a t-shirt. You know about the trademark and everything, but get it out there so you can have the use and all that stuff.
Thank
But babe,
you.
that's it. That's it. Listen to this again and put that out because that's where Stop Playing Diversity came from.
Yeah. And that's why it was brought to my attention. I've been asking for like spiritual messages about what my year will look like, 2025. And I'm being told that like collaboration will be the root of what I'm doing, like these various projects with these like-minded women who are making moves like me. So I'm so grateful
I
for
got
you.
a thought for you now. I'm already gonna
Yeah,
say this. I'm gonna talk to you offline, but
I
I
would
I
love to
think I
talk to you.
I have a thing because I was talking to Marissa as well about some things. We didn't move forward with that project, but I have some thoughts about her as it relates back to healing, restoration, and some things I want to do too. So, and Dr. Kamani, of course, with therapy. So, I'm trying to
Yeah.
find it.
I love it. Well, I want to take this time to say, if you are watching this live, if you haven't already, please hit the like button. Please hit the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed to my channel. I do things like this all the time. So thank you very much. So I won't take up too much of your time. So the last thing I want to say is, I want to ask you if there's any parting words that you would like to offer to the audience. We really appreciate you today, and thank you for being you and the unique way that you show up in the world, and all of these like glass ceilings that you break, and you speak out, and you really resonate with a lot of people. So thank you so much for being here today. And how can we stay
Thank
in
you.
touch with you?
I'm at Dr. Monica Cox at Dr. Monica Cox on TikTok. I'm Monica F. No, I'm Dr. Monica Cox on LinkedIn. I also have a Stop Playing Diversity newsletter. And if you go to my website, drmonicacox.com, you'll be able to subscribe and stay in touch with me as well. Author Monica Cox is another brand. So if you want to know about my new releases, come on over there. And I've started like even a private group for people who just want to talk about the stories that I'm writing, but also want to give me ideas of future stories that they would like. So go to Facebook, Monica's Tales and Truths. Ask to come into my private group and we can talk about some stuff.
Awesome. And I'll make sure
And
to
of
throw
course, get
your
my
links.
book.
Oh, for sure. And other books. I want to talk about those more, but maybe we can have you back on later next probably in 2025. But I'll make sure to
Absolutely.
throw your links in the description too. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
ladies, all very much. Yes, until next time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.